What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365, and our postseason coverage continues, and it's brought to you by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Hello to you all, and a happy Friday. We have made it to the end of another work week, which for some of us, including myself, is probably really exciting because, as you can probably hear it in my voice, I don't know if I've got an hour's worth of voice in me today. We'll see what happens. Ethan might take over halfway through the show because I woke up this morning and I couldn't speak. So the fact that my voice is working right now is a plus in the right direction, but we'll see how this goes. But anyway, a happy Friday to you. Chilly but beautiful Friday out here in Philadelphia as we get you set for another weekend. This one, the first weekend without Phillies baseball in quite some time, or at least, just immediately coming off of Phillies baseball in quite some time. We have a lot to get into today. Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson both spoke yesterday at their end-of-year press conferences, and we have a lot to break down. Some of it was expected. A lot of it was coach speak and GM speak. Some of the things that were said were intriguing, and we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the NLCS and the ALCS, where the Dodgers are one step away from punching their ticket to the World Series for the second consecutive year. The Blue Jays, meanwhile, fight back in a big way and tie the series at 2 games apiece. And before we do all of that, we'll be joined by Jim Salisbury coming up in about 10 minutes' time. Jim was also at the press conferences yesterday, so we'll chat with him, his thoughts, what he took away from what Dave Dombrowski and what Rob Thomson had to say. We'll do it all in the next hour here on the PHLY Phillies Podcast. So a happy Friday to you. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley producing today's show. And before we get to Jim's thoughts, and we'll circle back to this after we speak to Jim and give you my thoughts specifically, but I thought when I listened to Dave Dombrowski specifically, now Rob Thomson had some interesting things to say, but I think Dave Dombrowski was the one to me that really stood out. Because the first thing that he brought up was that every single coach would be back in 2026. We knew that Rob Thomson was going to be back. They had already made that proclamation that Rob Thomson was going to be back in 2026, and that was not unexpected. He is on the final year of his contract. Now, Dave did say that at some point in the offseason that he and Rob Thomson and the Phillies front office are going to sit down and look into tacking on another year to that contract so he's not a lame duck coach heading into 2026. So we'll see how that transpires. But what was interesting was how definitive and firm he was on every single coach returning. Because there was no question in my mind that Caleb Cotham deserved to return. Everything pointed to the fact that the Phillies pitching staff was excellent. Not just last year, not just this year, but pretty much since Caleb Cotham has taken over as the Phillies pitching coach, they have tangible evidence to tell you that not only have they been sustainably good, but there's been improvements from a lot of the arms in the Phillies rotation and a lot of the arms in the Phillies bullpen. I think the shining star of that conversation, of course, is Christopher Sanchez. He's gone from a thrower to a good pitcher to a great pitcher to an elite Cy Young candidate level pitcher. There's tangible evidence that Caleb Cotham's work has been in improving some of their starting pitchers and their arms and what they're able to do. Christopher Sanchez is prime example number one, but it's not just him. Ranger Suarez has continued to get better and better and better. Jesus Luzardo may have had his best season to date. Now, ERA will tell you he had a better year in 23 with the Marlins, but he had a ton of strikeouts, threw over 200 innings, and he was significantly better or significantly improved, I thought, from stuff perspective in 2025. Those 2 bad starts are the real reason that his ERA was 3.9 and not 3.5 because of the 2 really bad starts against the Brewers and the Blue Jays. There is tangible evidence that Caleb Cotham deserved to be back. Kevin Long is the interesting one because Kevin Long's numbers, well, I should say the Phillies' numbers under Kevin Long are really good. We talked about them on Wednesday. They're in the top 10 in a ton of different categories. Batting average, hits, slugging, OPS, OPS plus. Their strikeout rates are pretty good. There's a lot of numbers that tell you the Phillies are successful offensively as, with Kevin Long as the hitting coach. But the problem that I have, and I noted this on Wednesday, and I'll bring it back up again, was the approach conversation is the bigger topic of conversation. The chase rates, the whiff rates, the fact that you go up for 2 consecutive postseasons and really don't look like you have a plan. They had a plan against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They didn't really have a plan against anybody else. They basically just got punched in the mouth by the Dodgers starting pitching, and really the Phillies offense never responded. But the approach conversation is the bigger one. And Dave Dombrowski sat up there and said yesterday, well, I think our chase rates got better. I think our approach got better. And the reality is your chase rates didn't get better. In 2025, your chase rates were 30.3%. In 2024, your chase rates were 30.3%. It was the exact same chase rate in 2025 as it was in 2024. So if you're talking about the approach, the chase rates have gotten no better. Now, the number will tell you they actually got worse in terms of the league, because this year they were 3rd worst. Last year, they were 5th worst. So in fact, your chase rates in terms of comparison to the league did get worse. So I was surprised when Dave Dombrowski said it very much with his chest that every coach was going to return when it came to the Kevin Long conversation. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think Kevin Long's a bad hitting coach, because he's well respected across baseball. Rob Thomson loves him. Dave Dombrowski loves him. There's been a lot of high praise from his players, former and current. But I think that approach conversation is not a fair one to have when you say, well, our chase rates went down. They didn't. Your whiff rates in 2024 were 25.9%. In 2025, they were 25.7%. So your whiff rates went down just a little bit. But if you're telling me that you feel like you improved on that metric, you really didn't. And so I don't necessarily think that Kevin Long is a bad hitting coach. But I am surprised that there was a blanket, just overreaching statement of everybody's back, and that's how we're going to handle this thing. Because we knew Rob Thomson was coming back. We all expected Caleb Cotham to come back. Because not only do I think Caleb Cotham is an excellent pitching coach, I think Caleb Cotham is destined to be a manager sooner rather than later across Major League Baseball. I don't know when or where, but I do think he's got managerial experience in his future. I am surprised that Kevin Long got this blanket vote of confidence from Dave Dombrowski, and the metrics that he's using didn't change at all. We have a lot more to get into. We're going to talk about Dave Dombrowski's comments about Bryce Harper. We're going to talk about Dave Dombrowski's comments, or lack thereof, about Nick Castellanos. We're going to talk about his towing the line between giving the Dodgers pitching staff praise and perhaps the offense not taking accountability for that series. How does that go hand in hand? We have a ton to get into, some negative, some positive, including potentially one big-time prospect who may be with the team in 2026. We'll do that all as the show progresses, but we're going to break. On the other side, we're going to be joined by our buddy from allphly.com, Jim Salisbury. He was at the press conference as well. He and I chatted after the meeting, after the press conference, and we kind of went over our big takeaways. So we'll reveal those thoughts to you on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365 and TrueMark Financial Credit Union, and we will be right back with Jim Salisbury after this. All right, whether your home needs a little bit of TLC or you're thinking about taking that big vacation, now that your team's out of the mix, maybe you can turn your attention to the offseason as well and hit the road and travel. Or if you're thinking about maybe doing some renovations to your home, TrueMark Financial's HELOC Select is the way to go. And it just got even better because rates just dropped, making it even more affordable to put your home's equity to work. So whether you need that new kitchen or big repairs, or maybe you want to think about tackling some debt, with a HELOC Select, you can access all of your cash at once or take it out little by little when you need it. It's total flexibility, just like a perfect game plan should be. So make it happen today. Visit one of TrueMark's 24 branches or head online 24/7 to TrueMark.com/PHLY to get in the game today. Federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender, NMLS number 404. 938. And while we're here, let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. Find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365, the pioneers of live in-game betting. Odds and lines change all the time. And if you're continuing to track that LA pitching staff that we talked about, you can get in on a line that's so much more favorable to you, lower number, as the game progresses than the number that started the game, because that pitching staff has been excellent. You can find out why it's never ordinary with 780,000 live streamed events, over 78 different sports, and you can do that all right from the palm of your hand. And how about this? New users right now, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. And you can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. You get that bonus bet money by using the code PHLY365. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Hello to everybody in the chat, Stephen, Paul, Futz, all of our friends who are here hanging out with us today. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. And joining us now on the Xfinity mobile call-in line, it's our buddy from allphly.com, incredible baseball scribe, our friend Jim Salisbury. Jim, a treat to get to talk to you back-to-back days. This is nice.
Yeah. How you doing, Tyler? Good to be with you.
Good to have you on, as always. Thanks so much for taking some time. So, Jim, let's jump right into it, because between Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson, the guys spoke for almost an hour and a half yesterday. I was stunned by how long Dave spoke for, in fact. Before we get into the X's and O's, the finer details, was there anything that you heard or noticed that really jumped out to you as an overarching big takeaway from either of those two guys?
I guess probably my biggest takeaway, and I sort of wrote it on the website, was that he firmly believes, Dave Dombrowski firmly believes in this core. And, I can see why. They won 96 games. They got back to October. They were manhandled, at least their offense was, by an outstanding pitching staff. And they made fundamental errors that cost them in a tight series. I still think that core is capable of playing again in October next year. And then you need to perform better. They have not performed well under the bright lights. I'll say the last 2.5 postseasons, because that first part of the 03 postseason, they were crushing people. Sure. And then they just fell apart against Arizona. So, that was my takeaway. But, also I have I know for a fact he's going to attempt. There will be changes. Maybe not as many as frustrated fans want, but there's going to be changes, and there could end up being more depending on how the offseason shakes out. I'm sure they have multiple plans going into this offseason in terms of improving that core and pushing it along so it can have a better performance in October. And a lot of that is dependent on what happens with Schwarber, who they'd like to have back. A lot of that depends on Real Muto, who they'd like to have back, both free agents. If those guys don't come back, there'll be more change. They'll have to fill those holes, but there will be some change. Maybe not enough to satisfy people, but people will be satisfied if they get to October next year and finally put it all together. But I just don't think you can blow this thing up. Not when you have the payroll you do, the track records, the star power. You just can't start over. You got to keep trying to get this main core over the hump, and that's his job. He wasn't going to reveal too much, but I'm sure there's a strategy in there. Like I said, it can veer off and change throughout the offseason. Last year, if we were to talk on this day, a guy like Luzardo would have never been on their radar, and all of a sudden, December comes around and he is, and they part with the top prospect to get him. So you never know what can present itself. But I certainly understand people are frustrated. I sense people are frustrated. Dave didn't pound his fist more and, gnash his teeth and show anger and frustration and break chairs and throw the microphone around. But I will tell you, if he did that, that wouldn't be him. That's not his personality. You have to be authentic and true to yourself. I'm sorry, my damn dog's barking.
Believe me, I get it.
That's not his style, and he was true to himself, and he carries himself in a presidential manner. So that was the attitude or the posture you got from him.
So you kind of talk about the not, smash your fist and scream at the, scream into the oblivion. And the one thing I noticed was he was really, really complimentary of the Dodgers starting pitching multiple times. And then not only the starting pitching, but Roki Sasaki as well. The one phrase that I know a lot of people have kind of gotten up in arms about on social media was the quote where he said, "We ran into the wrong team." Now, where do you kind of fall on it's your offense's job to pull themselves up a little bit when they're, when starting pitching is good versus we're now watching a second consecutive team in the Brewers hit 101 as a team this series through the first 3 games. Where do you kind of fall in that, yes, the offense needs to be better versus maybe the Dodgers are just on a historic postseason pitching run?
Well, I fall in this way. The Phillies still have some pretty good hitters, and they didn't perform. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And I think those hitters who struggled, in fact, I know it. Harper's a competitor, Turner's a competitor, Schwarber's a competitor. They would tell you the same thing. There were pitches to hit in that series, especially early, that they didn't hit. I don't know if the swings are too big or what, but they didn't hit. That said, the Dodgers have great pitching. That is indisputable, and it has gone to another level here in this postseason. What are they, 8-1? You just mentioned what they're doing in Milwaukee. Milwaukee led the majors in wins. They did run into the wrong team, but that's part of it. I remember back in 2008 when the Phillies won the World Series, the Cubs went out. I think the Dodgers took the Cubs out. Yep. And I thought the Cubs were a superior team, but the Dodgers took them out. The Cubs would have given the Phillies fits. I don't think the Phillies beat the Boston Red Sox in the World Series that year, but the Tampa Bay Rays, I should say, took them out. That was sort of their World Series, and they had nothing left for the Phillies. So, that's what happens in a postseason tournament. Sometimes you're going to run into a hot team. Sometimes you're going to run into a team that's more talented than you. Sometimes you beat them. Sometimes a good team gets eliminated. And, the Phillies ran into we talked about it. I talked about it with Anthony. We thought Dodgers Phillies was kind of almost like a World Series last week. And I still feel like they were two very good teams. The Dodgers pitching handled the Phillies hitters. The Phillies hitters didn't do enough. The Phillies pitching was very good. The Phillies fundamentals stunk. They stunk on the bases and they didn't make plays in the field that they needed to win tight ball games. And that's why they're now making tee times.
Well, so speaking of that, I thought with Rob Thomson's press conference, and we'll get back to Dave Dombrowski in a second, the thing that was interesting to me that he brought up was not necessarily making different decisions personnel-wise, but thinking about going back to the end of the regular season, he would have tried to get some different situational things involved a little bit more. The one that jumped out to me was the up-down from David Robertson, because to me, that was maybe the most questionable of the calls, was he gets out of the inning, gets Muncy to tap out, and then he tries to send him back out for that 7th inning. In that regard, how do you kind of view his approach to, I'm not necessarily changing my personnel decision, but I would have liked to backtrack a little bit and get some of those situations involved if possible. Is that a fair accountability from Rob Thomson, or would you have preferred to say different player, different time?
No, I thought it was fair accountability, self-assessment. Maybe he wouldn't do it again. I will say David Robertson came out and threw 6 pitches and then had to sit down for 8 minutes. And you telling me you can't go out and make more, a few more good pitches? I didn't think the up-down was that huge. I really didn't. Obviously, Rob, looking back, I think is probably going to evaluate everything. But to me, a guy should be able to, sit down for 10 minutes and go out and resume throwing. In fact, when he tried out for teams this summer, he did up-downs. That was one of the things all the scouts wanted to see. I know because I know several scouts who watched him pitch. He did up-downs because that was considered like a challenge or a hurdle. Sure. You need to see a guy clear before you give your recommendation to your front office. He didn't make good pitches. Should Rob have gone a different route? In hindsight, absolutely. But, we always evaluate after the fact. But, that game one still stings. 2 years in a row, they lost the lead in game one, and it changed the entire series because the short series in game one is such a dictator.
After really good pitching performances, too, because last year Wheeler was incredible.
Wheeler was incredible. 7 shutout, 9 strikeouts. Get a leadoff home run for Schwarber, and you shut down.
Mm-hmm.
This year, 3-0 lead. Defense in the bullpen, and you don't sustain your offense. And I mean, you all of a sudden you win game one, you're up 3-0, you catch that game in. It's a different series because all of a sudden now the Dodgers are back on their heels a little bit, saying, "Wow, this Philadelphia team, this ballpark, and it didn't happen." And it's such a different animal, the postseason, in terms of ebbs and flows and momentums, and they had it and they let it slip through their fingers, and they'll rue the day. So they lost that game.
Couple of interesting free agent notes. I know Dave Dombrowski mentioned that the payroll will look similar to what it did a year or to what it did this year. And I know they have some decisions between Schwarber and JT and Ranger and perhaps Harrison Bader. When it comes to priority, he pointed out by name Kyle Schwarber, knowing his camp, knows that he wants to be a priority. Rob Thomson, meanwhile, really was high praise for JT Realmuto. Said he was one of the most prepared guys that he's ever been around. If you had to say, understanding that it's not a one or the other situation, perhaps, if you had to say Schwarber or JT, where do you kind of lie on who sits in top priority for this team?
All I can tell you is I know they want both back.
Sure.
And I know they value the heck out of both of them. And I know they're going to make really sincere efforts to keep both of them. John Middleton and Dave Dombrowski kind of have a history of getting what they want. And I think they're going to get both of them. I think they want both of them. Now, JT's going to be, 35 next year. Sure. He plays a very demanding position. You get beat up a lot. If someone goes 4 years, and they might, because it's a really weak free agent class. There's a team out in San Francisco that likes them a lot. Maybe you lose them. But I think they're a team built on starting pitching in a lot of ways. And that starting pitching staff really loves JT, loves throwing to him. He's a big part of that tandem. It's a big part of why they're good. I think the Phillies will do something and keep JT Realmuto. And I think, everybody wants Schwarber back, and I think they're going to make that happen. But that's just my opinion here on the 17th of October. The Yankees throw a crap load of money at Schwarber, it might change. The Mets do something, it might change. But I think Schwarber wants to be here. I think JT wants to be here. And I just feel like both sides are going to find a way to get this done. But it's free agency, and you just never know. Things can change over the course of the winter. But I would be, as I sit here right now, I'd be surprised if both were not back. And again, now you're getting, it's an old team and you're getting older. But you need power.
So with that being said, does that maybe play into the Ranger Suarez conversation, where I'm expecting Ranger Suarez to pitch elsewhere in 2026?
We all are.
Does that, unfortunately for him, or for maybe Phillies fans, does that push Ranger Suarez a little bit down the pecking order of priority for the Phillies, if it is a Schwarber JT priority at the top?
I think it's clear that Schwarber, Realmuto are 1 and 1A priorities. Sure. Schwarber 1, Realmuto 1A. Rangers down the pecking order, to use your phrase, because he comes with some fine print. The durability has been a bit of an issue, and the Phillies medical people know him inside and out. I'm sure they have projections on how he's going to hold up. I personally hope he holds up great. He's a great guy. I hope he makes a lot of money and pitches for 10 more years. But also, they have Painter coming. They brought in Luzardo last year, and I think one of the reasons, just in addition to he's a good pitcher and you want him, I think they were looking at him as he slides in and becomes that left-hander.
Sure. When
Ranger becomes a budget cut because it gets expensive and he's looking for a huge payday, and you have questions about, the track record health-wise. those are things you have to consider. So, I think Rangers are lower priority, and I think he'll be elsewhere. Like I said, I think they have Luzardo, Sanchez's development, Wheeler's under contract, and you have, Painter coming. I think that all factors in. You have to. It's always a constant cycle. You move on from somebody, you got to have somebody in their place, somebody young, talented that deserves a shot, and somebody, and also is cheaper and more, gives you more payroll balance, and that's something that has to consider. So I don't think we'll see Ranger back, but look, you never know. Schwarber signs with somebody right out of the gate. There's room in the budget. All of a sudden, the game is about runs, scoring them and preventing them. Maybe then your shift becomes, let's prevent a few more runs and bring back Ranger. But, those are just things we kick around. I think Ranger will move on, and they'll consider a way to keep Bader, because it would be nice to have a center fielder that can really go get it. I think we're going to see Crawford next year,
Sure.
But everybody says he's more of a left fielder, can play center field, maybe deserves a look there in spring training, I'm sure, but I'm sure we'll see him. He's sort of earned his way here, and that gives you always got to have that influx of young talent so your roster can sustain, and you bring in guys with lower payroll, lower salaries, so you can have more payroll balance. But that's the way I see their in-house free agents shaking out, and I don't see a huge splash in the free agent market. It's because their payroll is so high already. But who knows? Depending on who moves on and what's there, you never know.
Jim, last one for you, and I appreciate your time joining us on this Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Dave Dombrowski made some interesting comments about Bryce Harper. Now, I think people may be taking them a little too literally, but Dave said them. They came out of his mouth, and he basically said he doesn't know if Bryce Harper can return to the elite player, and it's up to Bryce Harper to make that decision. What's your thoughts on that phrasing and how he brought that up? Because to me, it felt like it was very on the nose, but I'm surprised that a president of baseball operations would outwardly say that about his star and face of the franchise. What are your thoughts on when he said that?
Yeah, I don't think every president of baseball operations would say that, but Dave's been around a long time. He's, he's got a lot of stripes. He's got a lot of lines on his resume. Like Bryce Harper, he's going to be in Cooperstown someday. So I think he has the chops to say that. I think he was on the nose with it, like you said, on the nose with it. But, my ears, when I heard it, we were sitting pretty close to each other. My ears perked right up, like Mr. Spock. My ears perked right up. It was remarkable. Like I said, he's got the chops to say it, but still, it's Bryce Harper. You don't often hear stuff like that. You don't often hear somebody take him on like that, and it was remarkable in my opinion. I don't know if it was premeditated, because I don't think you can predict you're going to get that question.
Sure.
But I'm sure it's something that was on Dave's mind, because it sounded like it was a on the point answer, and he knew what he was going to say. It sounded like he had that in his head, and it was thinking that, and it sounded like a challenge to me. Like, we need more from you. Like, they're not going to run it back completely. They're going to make changes, but they are reliant on the guys that are there. They're big boys. They're big money guys that are coming back. They're reliant on those guys. And this was his way of saying, we need more from you, Bryce Harper, than this year. It was his way of kind of saying, your career seems like at a crossroads, between good player and elite player. So go out and show us. That's what I took out of it. I thought it was remarkable. I thought it was a challenge. And I thought it was more than interesting. That was a big part of that news conference. Unexpected and big.
Yeah, between that and his pretty much point the finger right at Matt Strahm comment about PFPs. That was two of the more interesting ones that we heard during his 50-some-odd minutes.
That quote out of that post game, when Orion Kirkring didn't make that play, that quote jumped out at me. I've been around baseball.
There were some audible whoas when he said that.
When Dave said that?
Yes.
Yeah, one of them was me, because he looked right at me and he went, he didn't show up. But I've been around baseball my whole life. PFP, pitcher fielding practice, it's like brushing your teeth in the morning.
Sure.
You got to do it because it can win and lose you ball games. So how many times you see a tapper back to the mound or up one of the alleys, the pitcher's going to make that play. Good teams make those plays. And I realized that was a tough play on Orion. It was like a changeup off the bat. It spun out of his glove. He panicked. I'm not so much talking about the play as you got to do those things. And I'll tell you what, Rob Thomson's a detail guy. His teams do those things. But when I saw that quote, it jumped out at me. We didn't do PFPs. We should have done more PFPs or something like that. So, I wanted to ask Dave about it, and he said we do PFPs very, pointedly. We do have PFPs. He didn't do them. Apparently, he was excused from the drill that day, but I don't know. It just kind of jumped out at me as almost like a glass house remark that at that point in time, maybe not make. But Strom's a guy who speaks his mind. So Dave certainly rebutted it pretty strongly.
Jim, can't thank you enough. You're the absolute best. Check out Jim's latest piece. Dave Dombrowski, as you said at the beginning, Dave Dombrowski still believes Phillies core can win it all, using the quote, now we've got to go and do it, basically.
Can I ask you, what was your number one takeaway?
My biggest takeaway, honestly, was I am shocked that the entire coaching staff is back as a unit, because I think the one that maybe we're going to be turned to was Kevin Long. Right or wrong, how much does a hitting coach do on a daily basis? I don't know the answer to that question, but I was surprised to have kind of a blanket, everybody's back comment, especially with how the offense has performed in the last two postseasons.
How the offense performed over 4 days.
Sure.
I mean, you still won 96 games.
Sure.
I mean, Kevin Long's team, they were number two in the majors in batting average, number 4 in on base, number 3 in slugging, number 8 in runs, number 4 in OPS, number 6 in hard contact, number 5 in exit velo. I thought, and I actually wrote these things down a few days ago because I was digging in on Kevin Long a little bit. Stott had a good turnaround on an adjustment that was recommended by Long. Real Muto turned it around, had a pretty good second half on an adjustment, and he basically saved Kyle Schwarber's career. So I know we're always going to point to the chase and the lack of selectivity, but I just think it's in these hitters' DNAs, and I don't care who you bring in as a hitting coach. I don't know that chase and that selectivity is ever going to change because it's part of who these guys are. And also under the bright lights of October, they press like hell. And when you press, you chase and you try to do more than you can do. You try to do too much, your swings get too big. And I can tell you that guy stresses this stuff over and over and over. I wouldn't have been surprised if they made a change because I do think they need to freshen some things up with this team, and with the inflexible roster, maybe the path of least resistance is on the coaching staff, and they didn't do a lot there. But we'll see if they're not running it back. They're not going to run it back completely, but it's going to have a very familiar look, I believe. And we'll see if that turns out to be a mistake. But I still think, as you sit here right now, do you think this team plays in October next year?
Without question, yes.
Without question. I totally agree with you. Without question. And then it's about having 3 good weeks.
Sure. And I think you're right. You're right in the saying that, basically 4 bad games over a 6-game stretch or whatever, or an 8-game stretch or whatever it is. I think my look on it was if you have a back-to-back bad 4-game stretch or 8-game stretch or whatever it might be, does that the magnification of these games, because postseason games versus 162, like that magnification is very much there. Is it we don't think you're a bad hitting coach. In fact, we have lauded you for years, and I think former players did, current players do, Dombrowski and Topper both did. We don't think you're a bad hitting coach. Is it a change of voice conversation that you alluded to?
Totally valid. I mean, that's one of the reasons I thought Topper, and I didn't think this so much recently, but I thought this more like maybe coming into the season, like if they didn't really have a big October, they might try to change the voice. Sure. And those are all valid. I mean, sometimes it takes a different voice. And then sometimes I wonder, does voice even really matter?
Fair question.
I think it matters with a bunch of 25-year-olds who are. I think it's mattered a lot on the Milwaukee Brewers.
Sure.
I think that guy Pat
Murphy's done an excellent job.
Yeah, I know they're getting put through the wood chipper by the Dodgers. The Dodgers, are a wood chipper. But does voice matter that much with a veteran team loaded with guys making, I'll just say loaded with $100 million plus contracts? I don't know. I do think Topper runs a pretty steady ship and they benefit from that. But it's been 4 years of ascending win totals in the regular season, but diminishing returns where it really matters the most. And this franchise is beyond the point where they're happy with 95 win seasons, that they're only going to be happy with a parade. So if this stuff we're talking about this next year or even sooner, if they spin their wheels in the regular season next year, those voices might change. But I still put most of it on the players. It's a good nucleus that needs to just perform better when the lights are at their brightest, and I think they just haven't. They've pressed a lot on the offensive side when the lights are bright, and then they end up going home, and we all get pissed off.
Jim, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking some time. I hope you have an excellent weekend. It was great to see you in person yesterday, and a pleasure to get to chat with you today and on the podcast as well. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Sorry I got to rambling, and sorry my little
hey man, we could talk baseball for 4 hours if they let us, but they might kick us off the air at some point.
Okay, buddy. Great being with you.
Jim, you're the best. Thanks so much. You can check out Jim's work on allphly.com, and of course follow him at Jim Salisbury 215 on Twitter for all of the latest updates as well. The other thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about that I want to get into on the other side was the addition of the fielding position, or the major league fielding coach, because what that does is open up a bench coach spot. And what I think the bench coach spot is going to do might dictate the future of the managerial spot. We'll talk about that on the other side. We have to talk about Justin Crawford as well, because he is kind of a pinpoint of my thoughts after yesterday's press conferences, and then we'll have some fun at the end of the show. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365 and TrueMark Financial Credit Union, and we will be right back after this. Listen, if you're thinking about buying tickets, whether it be to, Championship Series or not, even if your team's not in it, you have to do it with our friends over at Game Time, because Game Time gives the advantage back to you, the fans. Fees are always included, so you're going to know exactly what you pay up front, and it's such an easy app to use. My favorite part of the app is the 3D seat map. You can see exactly where your seats are going to be, see your sight lines, see if you're going to be in the shade or the sun. You're going to know how many people are in your row, or at least in terms of how many seats are in your row. You're not going to have to worry about, am I sitting behind an obstructed view or behind the foul pole, or can I see the scoreboard? You know exactly what you're getting into before you buy the ticket. And with Game Time, it is so easy to find your favorite seats, or you can get in on zone deals where you choose a section, Game Time picks the seat, and you save money out of it. So it's an incredible opportunity for you to get the best ticketing experience possible with the Game Time app. And it's not just baseball. You can do concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it might be. Use the Game Time app to buy all of your tickets. And if Game Time if you find a price that's better than Game Time's, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, use the promo code PHLY after you create an account, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right, and while we're here, let me tell you about our friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services, because listen, don't wait till the winter months and you're worrying about your heat. Is it going to be hot enough in the house? Don't wait till the winter months roll in to get your home in tip-top shape, because it's starting to get a little bit chilly out there. You know what that means. November, December, January, February. Don't let that be the case. Get your heating inspection done now. Get your tune-ups, your plumbing fixes, your emergency repairs, whatever it might be. You can do it with our trusted friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services. They are the local pros that come right to your front door to get your home ready for the coldest months. Their experts handle everything you need, so there's no guesswork, there's no stress, there's no pretending you know what you're doing, because if you're like me, you don't play hero. Just call Ace. They'll get the job done right the first time. Find all the help that you need at your next home project, or for your next home project, at acehardwarehomservices.com. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zula here, Ethan Hartley producing today's show. And before we get into our big takeaway, because this is the last thing I wanted to get into before we talk about Justin Crawford, the other thing that really quickly made me kind of think about the future of the Phillies coaching staff was the addition of the Major League fielding coordinator position. Now, Mike Calitri is going to move into that role, which doesn't mean anything for you a ton right now, right? You'll see how the Phillies defense improves over the next, 6 months of next year's regular season. You're going to have to wait until May, June, July to see if it's actually done anything. You got almost a year to figure that out. But the interesting part is the fact that they now have a bench coach opening. And both Rob Thomson and Dave Dombrowski pointed to the potential of a coach with major league managerial experience becoming the bench coach. Now, it's always great to have extra experience in your ear, in your manager's ear, to give them insight and thoughts that maybe they don't necessarily have. That's not the reason that I'm intrigued by having somebody with managerial experience. The reason I'm intrigued with somebody having managerial experience is that it could theoretically be the heir apparent to Rob Thomson at the manager position, which makes me think the Phillies might. Now, Dave brought it up in his press conference yesterday that there's still 8 managerial openings that need to be filled, or at least I think 5 or 6 of them. Some have already been filled, but there's already some managerial positions that need to be filled. So you won't know who's going to be readily available until those positions get filled. Excuse me. But it's interesting that they both mentioned the potential of it being somebody with managerial experience, which made me think about a couple of different names. It made me think about David Ross, and it made me think about Rocco Baldelli. Both of those guys young enough to kind of click with a major league group, which doesn't need to necessarily be the case because Rob Thomson's older and into the latter stages of his career. I don't want to call him old, but he's older, and he resounds. He kind of it has a sounding point with this team because they appreciate playing for him. Doesn't necessarily have to be somebody young, quote unquote, but those are the two guys that kind of come to my mind. Skip Schumacher would have been an unbelievable fit, but he took the Texas Rangers job, and I don't blame him. He's a really good manager. I think he's going to do well there. It is interesting to me that they talked about having managerial experience on the bench coach side of things, because I think that may be a turning point, whether it is at the middle of next year, at the end of next year, whatever the case may be. They talked about adding another year to Rob Thomson's contract, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's safe beyond this season. Jim brought it up, right? I think there is a point of if they fall short again, maybe there's a voice change. We won't know that until October. But having a bench coach with managerial experience seems to be that they're hinting at the next manager of the Phillies might be whomever takes this bench coach job, which is why I point to Rocco Baldelli, who was just fired by the Twins, David Ross, who had managed the Cubs before. I point to those two guys because they have managerial experience and they're on the younger side of things. You've seen some younger managers get hired over the last couple of years. Stephen Vogt with the Cleveland Guardians, Clayton McCullough with the Miami Marlins. There's been a bunch of different guys that have been younger. Skip Schumacher, now again, getting hired, still very relatively young. It's a bunch of guys who have that conversation. John Jay is a name that might come up in that conversation as well, looking for his first MLB managerial experience, but has coaching experience nonetheless. It'll be an interesting thought to see who ends up being that bench coach, because I do think there's a potential that the Phillies are looking at that position as the heir apparent to Rob Thomson. All right, let's get into our big takeaway segment. It's brought to you by our friends over at Xfinity. Xfinity, imagine that. It seems to me that the big takeaway, one of my big takeaways from Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson's press conferences yesterday, was that Justin Crawford has a really legitimate chance of making the team out of spring training in 2026. Dave Dombrowski said, I don't really know what he else has to do at the minor league level. Topper echoed those sentiments, said not much more at the minors he can do. And then Dombrowski added that they liked what Max Kepler did, but there's a very realistic chance that he's not back with the club because A, he's a free agent, and B, Justin Crawford is going to be readily available. So at this point, to me, it feels like there is an inside track for Justin Crawford to make the team. So let's take a look at Justin Crawford's numbers in 2025 and kind of figure out how they're going to go in 2026. He played 112 games at Lehigh Valley, had 440 at-bats. He hit .330, another stop where he hit over 300. Solid enough slug. You know he's not going to hit for extra base power all that much. Just the 7 home runs, but 47 RBI, 34 extra base hits. The two numbers that really stand out to me are his ability to hit lefties. This is a lefty-heavy lineup. And if Justin Crawford's a part of it, it's going to be another lefty in the lineup. But it's a guy who in AAA hit .376 and had a near .930 OPS against lefties. In fact, it was a small sample size. It was less than 100 at-bats, but he was better against lefties in AAA last year than he was against righties. And then, of course, you know his abilities on the base pass. Over 40 stolen bases. He's a guy that doesn't strike out a lot, has a good bat-to-ball profile. Here's the thing with Justin Crawford at this point. Do I know if Justin Crawford is going to be a good major league hitter? I don't. But what those guys said is how I've been thinking about Justin Crawford for a long time now. There's nothing else that he can do at the minor league level. What else do you want to see from him in AAA to tell you he's ready? He's not going to give you much more pop. He hit 7 home runs last year. If he gets into double digits with 500 plus at bats, you're going to take it. That's enough for him. He's not a power hitter. He's not a gaps hitter. He's mostly a singles hitter. He's a guy that puts the ball in play on a routine basis. And you know what he does. More times than not, he has a low launch angle, and he puts the ball on the ground a lot, and he's able to beat a lot of throws out because of his speed on the base pass. So he's either going to succeed at the major league level because of that skill set, good bat to ball, defense is solid, speed is exceptional, or he's not because he hits the ball on the ground too much. And as Josh Donaldson once said, those balls that you hit on the grounds at the major league level, they're called outs. He's either going to do it or he's not going to do it. But there's nothing else that this guy can show you at Lehigh Valley that's going to change your opinion on him one way or the other. You either think he's good, his average is there, he's done it every stop of the way, and you're cool with him hitting the ball on the ground because of his speed and his ability to hit with 2 strikes and things like that. Or you don't think he's good because he hits the ball on the ground and he's going to ground into a lot of fielder's choice or 6-3 put out type of stuff. But there's nothing else for this guy to do at AAA. So considering they didn't move him at the last 2 trade deadlines when they probably could have, to me, unless he has a putrid spring training or he's injured, Justin Crawford probably should and will start the year with the big club in 2026. Now, there's nowhere else for him to go in AAA. So either he can play or he can't, but it's time to find out. And with that being said, what does that mean for the future of Nick Castellanos? Well, we didn't get a chance to talk to Jim about it, but Dave Dombrowski kind of danced around the question about Nick Castellanos. He said, I'm not in the conversation of talking about guys that are currently under contracts, but we'll see. It wasn't a vote of confidence. He gave a lot of votes of confidence. He gave one to Otto Kemp. He gave one to Orion Kerkering. He gave one to all of the starting pitching, as we kind of talked about. He seemed to give one to Justin Crawford. Didn't give one to Nick Castellanos. And you could sit here and say, well, we don't discuss players who are currently under contract. You talked about a Jesus Luzardo potential extension. You talked about all of your free agents who are not under contract. So you may not want to talk about your right fielder, but by not talking about your right fielder, you talked about your right fielder. Justin Crawford's going to make this team out of camp, assuming he doesn't stink in spring training. And I think at this point, there's nothing else for him to do in AAA. So why not, right? So that's our big takeaway segment. It's brought to you by our friends over at Xfinity. Xfinity, imagine that. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll start to get into the ALCS and NLCS Game 4s. Dodgers continue to roll. Blue Jays have life. And Max Scherzer is still nuts. And we'll give you some trivia at the end of the show as well. It's going to be you and Ethan Hartley teaming up as a group to figure out how many of these players you can get right. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. And we'll be right back after this. All right, whether your hometown team wins or not, there's always another way to win with our friends over at Parx Casino and the Parx Casino online app. You can check out all of their brand new casino games like Fireblaze Sky Queen, which is a BetParx exclusive. It's part of the reason why it's the only app that I would ever use to get into the online casino game. You can play blackjack, roulette, craps, poker, baccarat, and so many different online slots, including slots that are based on your favorite streaming shows like Breaking Bad, Squid Game, Walking Dead, Peaky Blinders. You can do it right from the palm of your hand. And how about this? New users right now get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. So head on over to betparks.com, download the app right now, and start enjoying all of the action and excitement from the casino right at your fingertips. You must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParks. You love to play, you play to win, you bet. BetParks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, picture this, a fan cave that is actually worth the investment, worth your dream setup. And thanks to Ashley, that could be real. We are giving away a $2,500 Ashley Furniture gift card. So go big on that sectional, add some stylish pieces to your already existing man cave, or trick out the space for game day. It's all up to you. Just visit ashleyfancave.com and see if you're eligible. Fill out the form and you're entered. It's that simple. And with that in mind, you can get a game day ready fan cave. It's simple. It's easy to enter. Enter right now, and you might be watching the next big game in a fan cave built by you, courtesy of Ashley. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli here, Ethan Hartley producing today's show. All right, let's get into the ALCS and the NLCS really quickly before we wrap up today's fun with some trivia. Let's start with the NLCS. The Dodgers are on the brink of a World Series appearance, and not only that, but a sweep of the Brewers. And it's why I asked on Wednesday. I feel like I have to reiterate it today, because I feel like a broken record, right? It's Dodgers pitching, Dodgers pitching, Dodgers pitching, Dodgers pitching, especially the starters and the guys that they're able to use out of the bullpen. Glasnow yesterday gets into the sixth. He gives up just the one earned run. He strikes out 8. And the bullpen, which included Blake Trinan, which we talked about, hasn't been very good in that regard, right? You use Sasaki, you use Glasnow, you use Vesia, you use Banda. Those guys have been excellent. But even Blake Trinan came in and got some outs. The Dodgers bullpen yesterday went 3 1/3 and gave up just 1 hit. This is the number that has jumped out to me, though. The Dodgers starting pitching in the NLCS has given up 2 earned runs in 22 2/3 innings pitched. Now, this comes after giving up just 6 to the Phillies over 22 innings. So you're telling me that in 6 games between the DS and the CS, the Dodgers starting pitching has given up 8 earned runs in 44 2/3 innings. That's a 1.61 ERA. What are you supposed to do with that? So I think Dave Dombrowski talked about, well, they ran into the wrong team. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that statement. I think that's a load of crap, quite frankly. I think that statement there's a fine line between giving credit to the opposition, which we on this show have done routinely. We talked about how good the Dodgers starting pitching was. And we talk about it now, how good it is against Milwaukee. They are laying to waste the entire National League on their route to a very likely World Series win for the second consecutive year. I'm allowed to say the Dodgers were excellent. I'm allowed to say the Phillies bats went cold. I don't think you should sit up there as the president of baseball operations and say we ran into the wrong team. That to me is taking the easy way out. That to me is telling me that, well, if we'd have played anybody else, we'd have been fine. So what? You don't run into them in the DS. So what? You run into them in the CS and you lose the way the Brewers are losing now? And then what? You ran into the wrong team in the championship series? What do you want to do? Shift gears and play in the American League? Because you'd run into them in the World Series, and then what? Would you say, well, we ran into the wrong team, and that's why we didn't win the World Series? You can sit here and say the Dodgers have been incredible. Their pitching staff has been excellent, and sit here and tell me that you think even, hey, man, Dodgers probably going to go win the World Series. Because I said it before the Phillies series that they were going to win the World Series. I said it after the Phillies series, and I'm saying it now heading into the NLCS. Or heading into the back end of the NLCS. But I don't know if I can sit here and totally be cool with the Phillies president of baseball operations going, well, yeah, we ran into the wrong team. It is what it is. Oopsie. What, do you just want to play a game of chance? So what, if the Dodgers didn't play you at all, you'd have won the World Series? We said that the winner of the NLDS is probably going to go to the World Series. I meant it. If the Phillies didn't have to play the Dodgers, or let me rephrase that. If the Phillies beat the Dodgers, I think they would have beaten Milwaukee because their starting pitching is excellent. But I'm sorry, you don't just get to sit here and say, well, we ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, you got to go out and compete. There has to be some semblance of accountability to say, our offense wasn't good enough. And that's where after that you can go, hey man, Dodgers were great. Glasnow, excellent. Blake Snell is on the run of his life. Yamamoto, we got to Yamamoto. The Brewers didn't. Hey, look at that. We had a plan, and that's how we attacked. But you didn't. You can't say that we ran into the wrong team and everything is fine. I think that you have to have some semblance of accountability prior to giving the credit due. We gave the credit. I'm supposed to do that. I talk about the team for a living. I don't run baseball operations. So the question there is, Futz brings it up. Did you run into the wrong team against the Mets? Did you run into the wrong team in the final two games in the NLCS? How many times are you going to run into the wrong team? I get it. Baseball is a volatile sport with variables that are beyond a lot of teams' control sometimes. Sometimes a bleeder finds a spot. Sometimes a bloop ends up going in the wrong direction. Sometimes you don't get a strike three call, which leads to a run. Sometimes you make the wrong managerial decision or your team doesn't hit. I get it. It's a volatile sport. But you can't just blame the volatility of the season down to 4 games and say, hey, we played the Dodgers who are probably going to win the World Series. That's where I get frustrated. Because I think if we all took the truth serum, we'd all sit here and say, man, Dodgers are great. They're going to win the World Series again. And they probably should. $400 million payroll, healthy for the first time in the season. Pitching staff's been incredible. That's their formula to success. And it's a good one. Spend more than the opposition. Have really, really dominant starting pitching. Find out that the guy that you brought in to be a starter can actually be your closer. And I almost cursed. He's bleeping filthy. That's a really good formula to win in the postseason. They figured it out. So tip of the cap to them. But I don't think you can just sit here and tell me, well, we ran into the wrong team. That one doesn't fly to me. And then really quickly, the ALCS. Blue Jays storm back with an 8-2 win. The road team has won all 4 games in this series. The road team now is 16-20 in the postseason this year, including the wild card round, which is pretty astounding considering we talk about home field advantage, right? The road teams have been pretty good. Ethan, before we get into, I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet, so hello to you, Ethan. Ethan Hartley producing today's show. We're 57 minutes into the show. Haven't had a chance to talk to Ethan yet. Good afternoon.
What's up?
We haven't had a chance to talk yet about road team dominance or road team success, but they're just 4 games under 500, including the wild card round, which is incredible because all 3 wild card games are in one place. But the road teams have been really good over the last 3 or 4 postseasons. And I saw this stat the other day. Do you know what the record for most road wins in a single postseason is? It's unbelievable.
Like from one team
in 1 year.
In 1 year, the entire scope.
Yeah, no. One team's 1 year. Sorry. Okay. So obviously you're thinking it's a team that won the World Series, right? Which is true, it is.
11?
The 2023 Texas Rangers won 11 road games.
Oh, wow.
That's unbelievable.
That is
they
crazy.
won both wild card games in Tampa. They won both games in Baltimore on a way to a 3-game sweep in the DS. They won all 4 of their 7 games in the ALCS in Houston. They were 0-3 in Arlington. And 3 of their 4 wins against Arizona came in Phoenix. That's unbelievable. Now, the Dodgers are probably going to steamroll their way to like 5 or 6 road wins. They're just not going to get to 11 because of the short size of the series.
Yeah.
But like the Dodgers are 4-0 on the road this year. They've been unstoppable on the road because of their pitching. But I saw that number. I was like, 11 is absurd to win that many games. All right, we're going to get to our trivia question in just a second. But before we do, I want to say thank you to all of our viewers watching on our streaming platforms, Roku, Samsung, Xfinity. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. We are officially in overtime. All right, team game here. Everybody in the chat, plus Ethan, versus the question. Here's your trivia question for Friday. We're going to give you one trivia question to end every show on Friday. Excluding Weston Wilson, who pitched in some blowouts this year as a position player pitching, the Phillies had 27 different players throw a pitch for them in 2025. Ethan in the chat, as a team, how many of these 27 guys do you think you can get? Season ended just a couple days ago. You should get them all, right? But 162 games is a long season. How many of the 27 do you think you're going to get, Ethan? I think you can easily get 20.
Okay.
The last couple of guys are like maybe, maybe not, depending on how much you remember April and May.
Should I just start ripping?
Yeah, go ahead. Just start running them.
Okay. Every starter: Luzardo, Suarez, Nola, Wheeler, Sanchez,
It's 5.
McAble.
6.
All right, let's go down bullpen. Duran, Romano, Robertson.
Yep.
No one's helping me in the chat. Ruiz.
Okay.
That's 10. I'm missing a few. Lazar. That's just the one off. Isn't there a Johnson who came up in it?
Seth Johnson.
Seth Johnson.
Yep, that's 12.
Taiwan Walker.
Taiwan is 13.
I feel like I'm missing a notable. Oh, Strom.
Missing quite a few notable bullpen arms.
Yeah. Banks.
Is that 15?
Kirkering. That's 16.
3 guys that you should definitely get.
McAbe, I did say in the chat. Lazar, I did say.
Yeah, 3 more guys that you should absolutely get. After that,
Alvarado.
17. Yep.
I still feel, there's somebody wrapping around that Romano, I did say.
You did say Romano. Both of these guys were on the playoff roster. In fact, 3 guys you haven't named were on the playoff roster.
Joe Ross.
Joe Ross is 18. Was not on the playoff roster, but is on the list.
Roster. What?
Got 9 more. 3 of which were on the postseason roster. A couple guys threw not some significant innings, but were more than a cup of coffee.
Did they throw innings in the? I don't.
No.
That's where.
Well, one of them did. One you haven't mentioned yet.
Whoa.
At least I don't think you have. If you did, I apologize, but I think you have not mentioned him yet.
Walker Buehler.
Buehler is one of them. Did not throw innings, but was on the roster. One guy did not pitch. The other one did pitch.
Threw pitches, but didn't. Duran, Banks, Strom, Kirkering. I thought I named all those.
You're missing one.
Who am I?
We talked about him with Jim today.
What? Now I'm so fixated on this. I should broaden my scope. Mazia?
There's the one that didn't pitch. Frank has Tim Meza. That's 20.
I don't even know who that is. Lou
Trevino is on the list. That's 21.
What?
Yeah, you're missing a big one.
What? Robertson, I did say.
You didn't say David Robertson. That's the one.
What? I swore I did.
You did not say David Robertson.
Wow.
That's the one. That's 22.
Thank you for holding me accountable. I honestly really thought I did.
That's 22. You got 5 more.
And now it's all kind of like really, really far-fetched.
Yeah, you got 5 more, and I would say...
Did any of them start like a one-off?
Start, I don't know.
Okay.
I would say 2 of them pitched. One pitched a good bit early. The other one pitched a good bit in the middle portion of the season. The rest of them were up and down cups of coffee type of guys. And yes, we are excluding Weston Wilson. No position players in this conversation. Weston Wilson, in fact, is the only guy I think that pitched position players for them this year. I'll give you a couple more seconds because we got to wrap up the show here.
Yeah, I'm not going to get it. Yeah.
All right.
I'll
So
stop there
the
at
one
22.
that pitched early that they ended up DFAing was Carlos Hernandez. Was DFA'd, I think, about mid-May, maybe June-ish.
Yeah, that's too early.
Daniel Robert did pitch significant time in the middle portions of the game was the season. Alan Ronhell, you missed. And then the other three guys, cups of coffee guys, Nolan Hoffman, Michael Mercado,
that one I cut
and Brett DeGuss are the other three. So he ended up getting 22, which is pretty impressive. Well done between you and the chat. We'll do a trivia question
shout out to
each
chat.
and every Friday to wrap up the show. Big thanks to everybody who joined us today. Thanks for being a part of today's chat, whether you're in the chat or just hanging out watching. I appreciate you. Big thank you to Jim Salisbury for joining us today for a really good conversation about Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson's press conferences. And, of course, a big thank you to Ethan Hartley for producing and co-hosting today's show. Stick around. 1:30 coming up. It is Philadelphia, followed up by the PHLY Eagles show at 2. PHLY Sixers postgame show tonight, the final preseason game of the year before we get set for the regular season. PHLY Flyers are off today. They'll be back tomorrow for a pre- and post-game show tomorrow evening as well. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We will talk to you on Monday right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast at noon. Have an excellent weekend. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you enjoy some baseball, even if the Phillies aren't playing. We'll talk to you on Monday at noon right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.